Quillan, oh Quillan, what have you done? Not only did Quillan Salkilld call out Mateusz Gamrot, but the UFC said, all right, dog, ask and you shall receive. And I think that we have one of the most fascinating stylistic matchups of 2026 coming up very soon here for UFC Fight Night. Gamrot versus Salkilld going down in the Apex. Because this is, to me, what makes the UFC so fun, right? Obviously, we love the fight game, the entertainment, the personalities, all that kind of stuff. But whenever we get a hyped up prospect that looks like the real deal like Quillan Salkilld, not only did Salkilld, the crazy son of a gun, call for, dog, who calls for Matthew Gamrot? Who calls out Mateusz Gamrot? Most dudes are usually like, Gamrot who? I don't know who that guy is. I've never seen him fight before. Gamrot who? Is he a UFC fighter? Who is this guy? People love to play dumb like they don't know who Gamrot is because they're like, I don't want to deal with that pest. I don't want to deal with a dude that's going to wrestle hard for 15 to 25 minutes and I'm just going to have to constantly defend takedowns. Mateusz Gamrot is one of the most annoying stylistic matchups in all of the UFC. And not only did Salkilld call for this fight, but that tells me that this dude is confident that he can go out here and has the skill set to be able to deal with the tornado of volume when it comes to the grappling that Gamrot brings to the table. And this is your classic built-up prospect that's looking dang impressive versus the proven guy in this weight class. But Gamrot is not a gatekeeper. There's people out there that say Gamrot's a gatekeeper. Mateusz Gamrot is not a gatekeeper. This dude is a prospect stopper. This is a guy that, yes, if you could get through Gamrot, you get into the top of, the division. But in terms of like people acting like, well, he's just older and he's kind of washed and he maybe doesn't have it anymore and you beat him and now all of a sudden you kind of get introduced to the top. So in a sense, sort of kind of gatekeeping that top five, but to act like Gamrot is some sort of, walk in the park or you could just go out here and Gamrot's lost a step or something. This dude is still dang good, man. And Mateusz Gamrot is essentially competitive with everybody. And he has a way of getting to these young fighters. But for not only for Salkilld to call for this fight, but to have that kind of confidence, that tells me that he sees something in Gamrot's game that he obviously wants to test himself against Gamrot's style, but he believes that he has the answers and lots of things to talk about. We're going to break down Gamrot's style. We're going to break down Salkild's style. We'll take a look at the tail of the tape because I think this is a fascinating matchup. And I know when we talk about Mateusz Gamrot, right, it's not always that he's in a super entertaining fight. But when you watch his style, you have to respect the game that he brings, man. A guy that is just going to relentlessly push the pace, shoot takedown after takedown. Even if it fails, he will continue to do so for as long as the fight goes. And then on the other side, you got Quillan Salkilld, who's got a very, very lean, tall frame for the 155-pound division, that's got dangerous knockout power, excellent striking with very good technique and fundamentals, but he also has a very good all-around ground game. He's got good wrestling. He's got good submission skills. And I am fascinated to see Quillan Salkilld get thrown into the deep end here against a proven guy that we know is one of the most high-level fighters that 155 pounds has to offer. I can't wait for this fight. But before we do that, I caution you. You know when like a teacher will say, hey, man, don't turn to page 85, and everyone's like, I got to see what's on page 85, man. It's like, don't open that door, right? And everyone's like, I got to open the door. I got to know what's behind it, man. Don't scroll down and see what the heck this card looks like. This card, man, this card's rough, man. This card is rough. I can't lie, but we know how the Apex cards usually are on paper. They're a little bit underwhelming. They usually end up being very entertaining. This main event, though, that's what I want to talk about because I think that this is a banger stylistic matchup. So we take a look at the tail of the tape. What I thought was actually very interesting on Tapology was 55% of people as of now are picking Quillan Salkilld to win, but not only to win, 73.7% believe that he is going to knock out Mateusz Gamrot. And what's so crazy about that is that's something we haven't seen. We have not seen Mateusz Gamrot KO'd before. We've seen him hurt. We've never seen him KO'd. 45% believing that Gamrot can get the job done. 78.6% believe by decision, which usually if Gamrot's going to win, it's probably going to be by some sort of decision. But Quillan Salkilld going to have basically a 5-inch reach advantage in this fight. A little bit taller than the 35-year-old Mateusz Gamrot, and the 26-year-old Quillan Salkilld obviously has youth on his side. And even though Gamrot's 35, 36, man, we're seeing, look at Jan Blachowicz. He's 43. Some of these Polish fighters, they hang in the game for a really long time and can fight at a very high level. We see all kinds of fighters be able to hang around at a high level, but I'm just saying, look at Jan Blachowicz still giving it all he's got, man. And then you got Mateusz Gamrot. Some people are like, Gamrot's slowed down a little bit, man. He's a little bit vulnerable now. I don't agree with that whatsoever. So first, I want to talk about Mateusz Gamrot and what he brings to the table, because this is the guy that's 26-4. It's a dang impressive record. And Gamrot's one of these guys where I've said numerous times in the past, if you want to fight a guy in the top of the division at 155 that doesn't present a lot of danger, that would be Mateusz Gamrot. Maybe that's one of the reasons that Salkild's like, I want this fight. I want to fight a guy that's not the most dangerous. Now, having said that, he's coming off of an excellent submission victory back in April against Esteban Ribovics, which we'll talk about that fight in just a couple minutes here. But the reality is Gamrot does have a sneaky danger element if you don't respect it. And I feel like that's something that can be often overlooked, because when we talk about Gamrot, it's the wrestling, it's the pace, it's the pressure, it's the non-stop takedowns being chained together, the way he gets to the single, to the high crotch, shoots the double. He has so many ways to be able to get you to the mat. And not only does he get you down, but we see he's got good ground and pound. The way that he scrambles, you start to kind of get back to your feet. He takes the back, drags you back down. His mat returns. Like, he is one of the best pure wrestlers, I think, in the UFC, especially at 155. And so good that we saw him. Look what he was able to do to Arman Tsarukyan. So when we talk about Gamrot, a lot of the finishes, to be fair, are prior to the UFC. But I feel like there's something to be said about what we saw from this guy most recently against Ribovics, right? 8 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, 3 first-round finishes. But since he's came into the UFC, I mean, Gamrot's one of these guys that he'll just put you in a blender. And that's what we've seen, right? What he was able to do, against Holtzman was very impressive by getting the stoppage. But losing to Guram back in 2020, crazy, right? Because we were like, hey, Guram, this guy might be something in the UFC. And then we got a little bit fooled by Guram. He ended up kind of fizzling out of the UFC, which I thought was disappointing. But submitting Jeremy Stevens, ground and pounding out Diego Ferreira, beating Arman Tsarukyan, which I think that there's an argument that Arman won that fight based on damage. But either way, it was competitive. Going out there, and this was an amazing fight against Beneil Dariush. You want to watch that fight back to watch some entertaining grappling scrambles. This is a great fight. This was such a fun fight to watch, right? Getting the job done against Jalen Turner, Rafael Fiziev. This was a fight Fiziev got injured in. Got it done against RDA, Dan Hooker in a razor close fight. So a lot of Gamrot's fights, it's very rare that anyone blows the doors off of them, right? Except for Charles Oliveira. We saw what Oliveira was able to do, was able to beat Gamrot essentially everywhere, in the striking, in the grappling, but we know just how good Charles Oliveira is and how dangerous he is at all times. But we've seen Gamrot, look, Ludovic Klein was being built up to be, some really good prospect. And Ludovic Klein's still very good. Mateusz Gamrot had the answers, right? Against Rafael Fiziev, even though Fiziev got injured. Against Jalen Turner. So Gamrot's been in there with multiple different styles of opponent. And the Jalen Turner one and the Dan Hooker fights, I feel like are good ones to get him ready for a guy like Salkilld, right? Because Dan Hooker and Jalen Turner are very tall at 155 pounds. And now you're going to be dealing with a 6-footer. In Quillan Salkilld. But really, I want to talk about this fight real quick against Esteban Ribovics, because this is where we saw Gamrot finally get a finish for the first time in a while. And obviously, I think that there was a lot of bad fight IQ on behalf of Esteban. His team was telling him stop kicking, and he just kept kicking, which, if you're going to throw a bunch of kicks, which a guy like Quillan likes to do, you're going to have to be ready to defend some takedowns and get ready to scramble and defend, because Gamrot does an excellent job of walking into range, almost kind of bait you into throwing out, kicks to the legs, kicks to the body. He's ready to catch him and does a great job of using that kick to aid into a takedown. And he did a great job of that against Esteban Ribovics and was able to get him out of there by submission. And I feel like that was one of the best performances that we had seen from Gamrot in his UFC career, what he just did to Esteban Ribovics. But when you talk about Mateusz Gamrot, we know what he's going to bring to the table. And you know what he's going to do. He's going to shoot takedown after takedown after takedown. But one of the things about Gamrot's game that I feel like often gets overlooked is his striking has actually improved over the years. I feel like his striking is better than what a lot of people want to give it credit for. He throws a good jab, right hand right down the middle, spams leg kicks from range, will throw some kicks to the body, because Gamrot just kind of does whatever he wants. Mixes in some occasional spinning attacks because he knows that you're probably not taking him down. Most guys want to keep the fight on the feet against Gamrot, and even if you do take him down, he could scramble at a very high level himself and then get right back to the feet. So there's almost this advantage that Mateusz comes into fights with, knowing that guys don't really want to mess with him on the ground. So he can kind of throw caution to the wind and throw out some of these Hail Mary shots. He can take those extra chances that maybe a guy like Salkilld isn't necessarily going to be willing to take because he knows that the grappling threat is there. But we've seen Mateusz Gamrot, for as underrated as I feel his striking can be, he doesn't have a ton of power. He can still sting you if you're not careful, right? And especially if he's feinting the level changes, he gets your hands to drop, boom, throws a straight shot down the middle, he can catch you. He can attack you with some of those kicks to the body, to the legs. The problem with Gamrot is we've seen that he is chinny. He is very, very hittable, and if you hit him clean, he gets wobbled. He does a very good job of recovering, but he is there to be hit. Mateusz Gamrot is absolutely there to be hit. So it's going to be interesting to see how he approaches Quillan Salkilld in this fight, because we've seen Gamrot do a good job of switching stances. He likes to kind of mix it up. It allows him to shoot in on these takedowns a little bit quicker, to get the right leg forward. He kind of mixes things up really well. But when you go southpaw against a devastating kicker like Salkilld, obviously maybe he's going to do that to try to bait Quillan into throwing that head kick or body kick. Well, not really a head kick. You don't want to get clipped by that thing. We saw what it did to Hakparas, but a kick to the body. That's how Salkilld will like to throw, set it up. Attack the inside leg to the body, and eventually the head kick will come upstairs. But maybe Gamrot will go southpaw to bait him into throwing that kick so he can catch it and get it in, aid it into a takedown. So Gamrot's going to have to watch out for that, because Salkilld, he's long and rangy for the weight class. He's got excellent kicks, very good distance striking, very good on the inside, but we know what Gamrot's going to do. It's going to be interesting to see how he approaches Salkilld, given the fact that I feel like Salkilld has a good submission threat to where while Gamrot's looking to go for these takedowns, there's going to be moments to where Salkilld can threaten with submissions, and that's what Dariush was doing a great job of in their fight, attacking, the legs, going for leg locks, those different things to get Gamrot to move, to force those scrambles, to be able to get back to the feet. But we all know this is going to be in the Apex, in the smaller octagon. We've seen Gamrot in 5-round fights before. He's the more experienced UFC fighter. He's been in these 5-rounders, so he knows what, the cardio is going to feel like, the pace that he needs to set and push. And he's also been in there against some of the best fighters in the world in this weight class, like Arman Sarukian, like Charles Oliveira, to where I think he's going to have a lot of confidence coming into this fight, saying, this young dude, he's calling me out. I'm going to have to show him that there are levels to this game. And we've seen Gamrot do it time and time again. But one of the things I will say about Gamrot, while we know that he can put you in a blender and make it this crazy style of fight, he's got to keep you on the ground. And he doesn't always do the best job of controlling guys. We saw him do it against Ribovics, but I feel like Ribovics does not offer the defensive grappling that Salkilld does. And if you allow Gamrot to just pressure you, get top heavy, smash you into the floor, get the ground and pound going, that can open up some submissions. And then also, he's just going to win minutes and grind you out and win a decision. That's what Gamrot is able to do, and we've seen that time and time again. Now, how does he match up with Quillan Salkilld, and how does Salkilld match up with him? Because, listen, one of my favorite up-and-coming fighters in the UFC right now is Quillan Salkilld. I am really high on Quillan, right? 12-1, 5 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, 7 first-round finishes. And the only loss in his career was a submission way back when he started his pro career. So outside of that, where he did get submitted, which, again, maybe that's something that Gamrot's going to take a look at that, say, hey, man, if I can get to the back and I can get into some of these dominant positions, maybe I can exploit some of those areas that maybe there's still a weakness there somewhat in Salkild's ground skills when it comes to that. But overall, man, Quillan Salkilld is a savage. And, going out there and doing what he did on DWCS against Gage Young, that was an incredible fight. Going out there and knocking out Anshul Jubilee in less than 20 seconds, it's like, you knock out Jubilee, one of the legends of the game, you're probably going to be fighting for a belt at some point, right? We all know how it goes when you beat Anshul Jubilee and what a test that is, right? I'm joking around, but you get what I'm saying. Then he goes out there and beats Yanal Ashmouz, and, so you get a quick KO. You have a little bit of a back and forth type of war with Gage Young on DWCS, one that Salkilld was in complete control of. Then you go out here against Yanal Ashmouz, who's a heavy hitter, has a good ground game, and we had to see Quillan Salkilld mix in the wrestling. He grappled very, very heavy in this fight against Ashmouz and pushed a crazy pace for 15 minutes. But what we did see, he started to slow down a little bit. And when you're one of these guys and you're out here, and you're having to grapple a little bit more than what you normally would, you can't get that early finish. How does that gas tank hold up? And some of the technique starts to go out the window the more tired you get. So if he gets pulled into the later rounds against Mateusz Gamrot, that's where I think things could get very, very interesting in this matchup. And then flying all the way across the world on shorter notice and knocking out Nasrat Haqparast was just spectacular. The way he set up that high kick, we were just talking about it. Haqparast is a southpaw, so it was that open stance battle. Crushing, leg kicks to the inside, to the body, and then boom, the head kick right over the top of the hand that was protecting the side of the head of Haqparast and just slept him badly. One of the nastiest head kick KOs we've ever seen. And then running over Jamie Mullarkey. Mullarkey looked like he was kind of having some moments on the ground early, and then Salkilld was able to switch position, reverse, scramble around, and able to submit Mullarkey. And then most recently, they gave him one of the leaders, if not the ringleader of the Chinny Chin Chin Club, and that is Beneil Dariush, a guy that may look like he's 60, but he's not quite there yet, right? He's kind of past his finest hour. I'm a big Benny Dariush fan, but it's been tough to watch, right? And that's one of the reasons they gave Salkilld the matchup. A name in Dariush that people know, a guy that at one point should have gotten a title shot and unfortunately never did, and it's just been all downhill from there. Now, to be fair, Dariush has been fighting some of the best guys in the world, but he doesn't have the durability. He doesn't have the chin. He landed a good kick to the body and was able to hurt Salkilld, actually, with a left hand, was able to drop him. But outside of that, it was all Salkilld. Showed good takedown defense, pushed Dariush up against the fence himself, was able to land a right hand on him, and able to put him away. So what we've seen from Quillan, very accurate striker. Fights very, very well at all ranges. Very good from the outside, right? He's got the long, rangy frame. He's going to have the reach advantage in this matchup. Very good with kicks to the body, kicks to the legs. Can mix in that high kick that we know. We saw him land on Nasrat. He's got accurate boxing, man. Very, very good jab. Beautiful straight right hand down the pipe. And he works the body very well. And I feel like that's going to be something that Quillan should absolutely look to do in this fight. If you know a guy is going to look to level change, you know a guy has a crazy gas tank, poke holes in it. And what I mean by that is run him into the jab number one to bust up the nose, swell the lips, affect the breathing. That's a great way to start adding up damage and just let him run. Because Gamrot's going to look to pressure forward, at least I think. Or he's going to have Salkilld chase after him, and when Salkilld throws, too wide of a shot, that's where Gamrot's going to look to level change and get underneath. But I think Gamrot's going to try to pressure him. It's the smaller octagon. There's not as much room for Salkilld to operate with, so it's going to force a more close quarters type of battle than it would maybe in the bigger octagon. So I feel like that's an interesting element with the cage being a little bit smaller here. But to me, Salkilld just needs to embrace the grind here. Know that you're going to have to wrestle hard in this fight to win. Unless you clip Gamrot real early and that's all she wrote and you clip him in the first exchange, then obviously you don't have to worry about it. But I feel like Quillan Salkilld should come in with the mindset of, I'm going to have to wrestle hard in this fight and embrace that. Where I feel like a lot of people go wrong is they're just like, I don't really want to entertain the wrestling of Gamrot. I don't want to play that game. I got to stick and move. I got to run around. Look at when Dan Hooker fought him. Dan Hooker did such a good job of just embracing that style and taking it to Gamrot, and he was able to hang with him and edge it out over Gamrot. And I feel like, in a way, Quillan Salkilld at this point in time is better than Dan Hooker, I think, personally. I think Quillan Salkilld is more well-rounded than Dan Hooker. I think he's got a better ground game. I know Dan Hooker has a slick submission game, and we've seen Hooker in there with some of the best guys in the world, and a prime Dan Hooker's a very good striker. But I feel like Quillan Salkild's boxing, not only is it nasty, but it's very, very accurate. And I feel like if he runs Gamrot into the jab, throws uppercuts, knees up the center line, knowing Gamrot's going to look to level change, throw those leg kicks, throw him to the calf. That's a lot harder to catch a calf kick, right? If you're throwing him to the thigh, a little bit easier for Gamrot to catch. You're throwing to the body. Obviously, those are good shots that can set up a high kick. They can, damage the rear arm to make it, take away some of the power in the backhand of Gamrot. But it's not like Gamrot's the heaviest hitter to begin with. So I feel like if Salkilld attacks the body with the boxing, attacks the lead leg of Gamrot, right? Taking away, we know he switches stances, but take away the base, man. That'll make it a lot harder for Gamrot to kind of explode and spring into range on these takedowns. And I feel like just poking at the body of Gamrot, take the wind out of the sail. We know he's got a good gas tank, but if you can attack the body, I think that it will slow down Gamrot in this fight. And Salkilld, to me, is just a far better striker than Gamrot. I think Salkilld is much more dangerous than Gamrot. And I think he's the more polished all-around fighter. It's just the reality of Gamrot is so good at what he does. He's so good at what he does. But we've seen that Salkilld can fight any kind of fight. He can meet fire with fire early. He can hop on the gas early and get you out of there. He has no problem having a tit-for-tat back-and-forth battle. He has no problem embracing a war like he did kind of against Gage Young on DWCS. So I feel like this dynamic experience, while he hasn't entered the Shark Tank before necessarily, right? I mean, you could say Dariush was the biggest test, but we know that was kind of a lose-lose fight for Salkilld. Like, obviously a big moment to make a highlight, but everyone was just expecting him to run over Dariush. So it's good that he did, because if he didn't, we'd be like, oh, well, is he that good, right? Considering, even though Dariush is still good, he just doesn't have a chin. We saw what Dariush was able to do against Mateusz Gamrot. He was able to scramble, attack the legs, use that to work back to the feet. I feel like Quillan Salkilld is going to do a lot of the same things. He's got a big, tall frame, and sometimes against those guys, man, they got kind of that freakish power, freakish kind of strength that you don't necessarily expect. And even though Gamrot does a great job of getting to the hips, we've seen Salkilld has very good fundamental takedown defense, digs for the underhooks, you push him up along the fence, right? Does a great job grabbing the whizzer really hard, and he does a great job defending the single leg out in space, which is going to be very, very important because Gamrot's very, very good at attacking the single. And then he just chains things together, and it's not just defending that first initial shot from Gamrot, but then defending against the other takedowns that are being chained together, and Gamrot will not stop, man. He's not going to stop. He's not going to deviate from the game plan. Even if he fails 10 takedowns off the rip, he's going to keep trying. He's going to keep trying. He's going to keep trying. So while Gamrot's not maybe the most exciting fighter in the world, you have to respect the difficult game that he brings to the table. So ultimately, how do I see this fight playing out? Because this, to me, I've been back and forth on this. Because the minute this fight got announced and when Quillan Salkilld called out Gamrot, I'm like, it sounds great, but is the UFC really going to look to do this? Or are they going to look to throw one of their, most hyped up lightweight prospects in there with a guy that we've seen shut down prospects before? But this, to me, not only displays confidence from Salkilld, but confidence from the UFC and curiosity, right? The UFC, I think, sitting back saying, man, how good is Salkild's grappling? How can he deal with a high-paced fight, especially if it goes for a full 25 minutes? The reality is, I think Salkilld is the more dangerous fighter here, and I think he's the more skilled fighter. Maybe he's not the better wrestler. I think he's got better jiu-jitsu than Gamrot. I think he's much better on the feet when it comes to the striking. He's got more power. He mixes up the combinations a lot better. And I think there's more consequence on the feet when dealing with a guy like Quillan Salkilld. So my early prediction, I think Quillan Salkilld is able to beat Mateusz Gamrot, but I think that it is going to be a hard-fought decision. I don't know. Maybe Salkilld does knock him out or locks Gamrot in some sort of submission. We've only seen Gamrot finished one time in his career, and that was most recently against Charles Oliveira, who we know is the most dangerous. I think he's the most dangerous fighter of all time, Charles. When you talk about getting knocked out on the feet, submissions, he's so well-rounded, the most prolific finisher of all time. So no harm, no foul there. But I feel like at this point in time, while Gamrot is still very, very good, he switches stances, he gives you a ton to worry about, and he's relentless in his approach. I feel like Salkilld can come out here, sprawl and brawl, and attack Gamrot. I feel like that Salkilld just needs to embrace this fight as this is just going to be a war, man. This is going to be a war, right? Because if Salkilld comes out and he's kind of cautious, it's 25 minutes, I'm going to run around and, kind of try to avoid the grappling of Gamrot. I feel like that's where people go wrong. I feel like that's where people go wrong because eventually Gamrot's going to get to you. He just is. And then if you spend all this energy running around kind of avoiding what Gamrot's going to bring, then you've already started to kind of poke holes in your own gas tank. Then he takes you down. Then you're having to work back to your feet, and we know how draining that is. If you've ever grappled, you know how hard it is, man, when you get taken down, especially if you get put and flattened on your back. A guy gets in the mountain, you got to get out, work back to your feet, and you get back to the striking. Your arms, feel heavy. Your body just feels heavy, and it starts to slow you down. But the reality is, Salkilld, to me, he's looked better and better and better every time we've seen him. And I know that he is hittable in his own right? We were talking about Gamrot being hittable. So is Salkilld. We've seen Salkilld clipped in quite a few of these fights. We saw Dariush clip him. We saw Gage Young clip him. We saw Ash Moose land in some big shots. So guys have landed on Salkilld. Salkild's young. While he gets hit, he takes a shot very well. I think he's the better striker on the feet. He's got more tools, and he has multiple ways that he can get to you. Not only with the submission skills, but on the feet, he's got knees, elbows, the boxing, and he also has a very dangerous kicking game. But I feel like in this matchup, he's going to have to kind of pick and choose when to throw those kicks, considering Gamrot is going to look to catch those and turn those into takedowns. So I think that stylistically, even though I'm not always super excited for a Gamrot fight, given that, how a lot of the fights end up playing out, I do respect the game that he brings to the table. And I think Matthew, he's a dog, man. He's a savage. He's going to move forward. You know exactly what he's going to do. And it's going to be on Quillan Salkilld to go out there and deal with it and impose his own style on Gamrot. And I feel like that's the big thing. Don't be afraid of Gamrot. Go after his ass. Go after him. Put damage on him early. Because if you can put damage early on a good wrestler, take away some of that confidence, slow him down a little bit, especially early in the fight, I feel like that would pay dividends for Quillan Salkilld, because banking on a finish in a 25-minute fight against a guy who's never been KO'd, we've seen him hurt, to be fair. Gamrot does a great job surviving. So banking on the finish, I don't know that that's the way to go. I feel like Salkilld should invest in the body, attack the lead leg of Gamrot, make him a little bit more of a sitting duck, take away some of that explosiveness on the shots. Gamrot doesn't have a ton of power. So pick those moments to stand in there, slug. You know, obviously guys are going to be reacting heavy because of the, Gamrot feints a level change. You see guys already start to sprawl. They react heavy. That's where Salkilld needs to stand his ground and look to plant a big shot on Gamrot. And I feel like he's going to sting Gamrot, and I think he's going to hurt him. And maybe he does knock him out. And then maybe he could even club and sub him, right? Because when you're rocked, even though Gamrot has good submission defense, when you're rocked and you're trying to shake the cobwebs, sometimes guys that have a good submission game, they could just walk you right into something and lock something in and get you out of there. So I think this is a great fight. I honestly could kind of see it rolling either way. That's why this fight has me stumped a little bit. But where my head is at right now, stay tuned for the official prediction coming up soon. But I lean in the direction of Quillan Salkilld to get this thing done by a well-fought, back and forth decision, to where it's just going to come down to the fact that Salkilld can scramble well, and I think he's going to put a lot of damage on Gamrot over the course of 25 minutes. But the big thing to watch is, how does that Salkilld gas tank hold up over a 25-minute fight in the smaller octagon, first main event in the UFC? How's the adrenaline going to be? What are the nerves going to be like? Those are all some interesting factors coming into this fight. But Quillan Salkilld, I like everything about this dude. I think he's got the goods. He's got the it factor. I think he goes out here and gets the biggest win of his career against a super game opponent in Mateusz Gamrot.